guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pro Physique Code. Today we are talking about investing in yourself and all of the different ways that you can redirect focus, I guess, or highlight. I don't know, there's a bunch of different words, I guess, for investing in yourself, but ways that as we're starting this new year off fresh and everything, that you could look at different opportunities to kind of pour into you and your goals a little bit more, depending on what life, finances, commitments, things like that look like. So we'll cover a lot of different things. But today I'm with Coach Jess and Coach Tyler. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, good.
Everyone's so
It's the
quiet.
holidays. Excited. My little girl's turning 3 tomorrow. So I guess Meta, we're recording this in December 20th. So tomorrow, December 21st, she's turning 3. So pretty excited about that.
3's fun.
Is 3 fun? This is me coming from a childless, seeing what people go through from the 2s to the 3s.
I've found 2 to be really fun, and it seems like it's just going to keep getting more fun, but we'll see.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like that I go into it with that attitude and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm sure it'll come with its challenges, but it's
I'll
always
say
fun.
Ben's about to turn 4. And while I say 3 is fun about somebody else's 3-year-old, I'm looking forward to 4 and seeing if that comes with a little bit of chill. But Ben is like, he's a special kind of maniac. So
It's so funny. I feel like it's also different if you have a girl versus a boy, because I feel like
I've been gathering.
Yeah, I feel like the boys have like very big emotions when they're 3. Not that girls don't, but like I have girlfriends that tell me about their 3-year-old boys, and it's very different from like a 3-year-old girl, but then you get the fun stages of the girls later.
It's the logic piece, right? I feel like girls almost get like that logic piece a little bit sooner, where you can like have a conversation about like, this is why we can't, do whatever crazy thing. And like Ben will literally just put his fists up and he just goes, and like when he's frustrated, because he like just wants it and he'll like contain it kind of and just get really mad and then he can move on. But there's so many days where I just stare at that kid and I'm like, oh, okay.
I know this has been a bit of a side tangent, but like good friends of ours, they have a boy and he's 3 or 4. And I think like what they were saying is like boys get their first testosterone dump at like 3 or 4, and that's a big part of it. Like
that explains
because
it.
now they really can't really understand their emotions. I mean, I didn't even understand my emotions at 13 when I got my second testosterone dump. Right? So I'm sure at 3 or 4, it's even harder.
Oh man.
Sometimes as adults, I don't even understand my emotions.
Me too.
Right. Well, so that's kind of a good segue into what we're talking about though, because I feel like with a lot of the stuff that we help people, especially on the lifestyle side of things, like when it comes to prep clients, if it's somebody who's never done that before, I always recommend they talk to their family and friends and stuff about like the gauntlet they're about to put themselves through, because it's like you're about to try and go to like weird places with your body and shit's going to get weird. But with lifestyle people, I feel like they can run into some of the like same stuff, even if they're not at the same degree of well, saying the same degree of commitment feels wrong, because they could be at the same degree, but they don't have to go as far like with certain stuff, right? But there's always going to be people who are like, oh, I wish I could take time for that. I wish I could do that. And like those kinds of things that maybe give you like grief about it, which is frustrating. And I know, especially as a mom who works with a lot of moms, that can be something that pulls people away from it, is that like, well, I should be spending that money on my kids, or I should be spending that time with my kids or something like that. And so it's really easy to push those investments off. And so if you guys had somebody who was just like super fresh and they're like going into the new year, I just want to invest more in myself, and they didn't have any like big things going on that we normally work with people, like where would you start with saying like, okay, this is what I want you to do first?
I always this is not necessary. No, let me backtrack. when I talk to clients, a lot of the things we work on is like awareness and understanding where we are coming from. And then you're able to move forward with that, because sometimes they might not even understand that we're looking for more information other than their macros and their cardio. And they'd be like, well, I did all of that. And we're like, okay, well, let's look at other things. So I think a big part of investing in yourself is learning and like bringing awareness, learning and understanding more about yourself and your tendencies, and being aware of where you might be holding yourself back, or where you might be being able to level up a little bit. And we've talked a little bit about that before, like how Christina and I are more like A type and Tyler's more like chill. And there's different personality types that go along with that. And I think especially us as coaches, like we are not macro calculators, we are coaches. So I want to know about my clients, and I always ask a lot of questions, and then they're like, oh wait, no, I've never actually thought about that. So that's actually where I start a lot of the times, is asking them questions and hearing what they have to say in regards to, I don't know, time management, career, like, you know, how hard can you push yourself at the gym? Do you know? You know, like that kind of thing. It's a very broad topic, but it's just that awareness factor and like learning more about yourself so that you can actually progress. Because I know for a long time, I was the person that was holding myself back. I was the one who was making me constantly stress and overthink and overanalyze a lot of the things that I was doing. And then I wasn't making any progress because I was so stuck on, well, I should be doing this and I should be doing that, instead of like, oh, what can I do now? Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of the same things that Jess said, and it's just really establishing a baseline at first, and not just like a macro tracking consistent base, like all of this, like it is looking at then that areas in that person's life, like where we might run into issues down the road. Like, I mean, especially for a lot of those lifestyle clients, you know, it's, I want to lose 15, I want to lose 20, I want to lose 30 pounds. And like, that's a big goal. And so we need to be aware of where, you know, we just maybe need to pay some extra attention. You know, I tend to work with a lot of businessmen. And so it's a lot of lunches out with clients, dinners out, you know, traveling. Okay. Like this is now going to throw certain issues into our goal that we now need to kind of figure out. And like, let's figure that out while we're just maintaining, when before we're even dieting. And so I really just try and get someone to establish like a full baseline and just being comfortable with the lifestyle of it, and tracking and training and figuring out weekends. Like that's a hard part. Like I mean, I struggle with my weekends sometimes too. Like that's a really hard part for a lot of people. And I think, you know, a big thing is, and I mean, you know, we know this, is people don't really realize probably how much food they're actually consuming, or, you know, how much they're going out for dinners and things like that. And so, you know, a lot of times if I just throw, oh, here's 2,100 calories and now we're going to be dieting, that can be pretty overwhelming for a lot of people that, one, they may have never really tracked consistently or at all in the past, and then they're not even aware of like what's in food and how to like manage these and like all of this kind of stuff. And so yeah, it's just bringing that awareness, establishing that baseline. And I find like there is then that a lot of like education over those first kind of like 3, 4, 5 months of asking those questions and getting them to pay attention to their sleep and their water intake. And you know, it may seem like second nature for us as coaches, but you know, I kind of catch myself once I start working with a client of like how much shit there actually kind of is you need to, not need, but you want to be aware of as you start to move along. And like it can be a lot, especially for someone who, you know, is maybe trying to completely change their whole lifestyle, right? If they're trying to do a complete 180, you know, that's just not something that's going to happen overnight. So yeah, I like doing a lot of that kind of stuff as well, and just trying to get them comfortable at a baseline, because that is where everything is going to flow from. And we can easily always come back to that baseline when life does get crazy or things do come up. We have kind of that home base we can come back to.
I think the education is important. Like that's a way that you can invest in yourself if you are new. Now, there's a lot of education out there, right? Part of that might be hiring a coach. So putting aside money to have someone who is educated, that you vet, like hop on the phone with them, whatever it is, and invest monetary, like money into them, but also invest that time, right, to educate yourself. I send my clients books, I send my clients references, I send my clients podcasts. I mean, we have this podcast, but there's lots of other things that are out there. And then you also want to take that all with a grain of salt, right? Because there is so much information out there. It can be really overwhelming. But like Tyler, you said, starting to track your food and understanding what is in food, and understanding that a chicken breast is very different than, I don't know. Yeah.
Like literally.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not nearly as tasty.
That's okay. See, I'll fight you on that, because I think chicken thighs are weird. Like Vic loves them. I think it's got a weird taste, but everything out of what you two said there, the big thing that stuck out for me was the education piece and the baseline, but having it be personalized, right? And I feel like the hard thing there is it's going to take a little bit more effort, because when I say like a personalized baseline, I don't mean go plug your information into a calculator, because I hate them. I hate calculators so much. They don't know anything about who you are as an individual. They can just go off of how tall you are, how much you weigh, what your age is, and then your self-reported choice of 4 levels of activity. But like that doesn't take into account so many other things that can affect stuff. And so they just make me nervous. So if a calculator is absolutely all we can use, okay, it's somewhere to get started. But really what ends up happening if you take that time to invest in a macro tracking app that you like the interface of, because this is going to be something that you're using all the time, which is why I will never leave MyFitnessPal. I don't care if they came up with the most amazing thing in the world. I can literally log things in MyFitnessPal with my eyes closed. Like I could just do it because I've been doing it for so long and I've got stuff lined up in there. And you're going to have to take that time and put that effort in to find out exactly what your body is getting. And that's where, I feel like people probably anticipated that as a group of coaches that we're going to bring up coaching as an invest in yourself thing. But I feel like it can't get overestimated. The estimation cannot be wrong in regards to how important and impactful a coach can be, especially when you first get started with stuff, because of the amount of bullshit information out there. And like I saw something must have been on Instagram or something like that today, where they were talking about like diet culture and how it's like, you can't have bananas because they're full of sugar, but you want to make sure you get all of your sugar from fruit, but then you also can't do and it was like everything was back and forth and fighting each other. So really, depending on where you get your information, even if it's a study, we can find a study that completely refutes it. It just depends on who paid for it and things like that. So having a coach helps hand it off and be like, this is your problem now. And then like the good news is, like you can ask questions and you can learn and you can figure out not only what your baseline is in terms of like activity level and how much you're eating, but also like, where does my body do best? Because I think those questions that you guys were talking about are ones that people aren't going to consider. But, if we're talking to somebody who works shift work and like 3 days out of the week, they're at work for 15 hours straight. And then they're just like trying to survive the rest of their life. And they're saying, hey, I can lift 6 days a week for 2 hours, put me in a deficit. It doesn't matter. You do whatever you want to do. By the way, I sleep 3 hours a night. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, we have a lot of things we have to cover before like I start making you hungry and making you work out until you're super sore. Like there's different things. And so taking the time And there's going to be that money investment piece to say, like, I'm really going to figure out where my life is right now so that you know the path forward. Because I think people, it's really easy. Any of us could do it right now. By the time we're done with this podcast, probably find different apps to put in our like basic details and say, give me a fat loss plan, and it's going to kick some random numbers out and tell us what to do. Like, that's an option, but having a human there that's looking at all of that stuff, I think just is so immensely helpful.
Yeah. It's like, you want to get better at your job. You need to go to school. You need to take courses. You need to go to seminars. You need to pay some money or spend some time doing something like that, right? It's the same with health and fitness. You can do your own research, sure, but like we said, there's a lot out there. I wanted to touch on something that Tyler said about his weekends, because he struggles with weekends, and I think a lot of
Not
people
every weekend, just some weekends. Don't make me.
Like,
No,
he's like, I do this for a living. I can do some of.
No, but I mean, like, that's
Amen,
very
I know.
common because the weekdays provide that structure, right? And so when you're starting out, or even not even when you're starting out, like you're seasoned, the weekends are those wild cards of just like things happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so part of investing in yourself might be creating like structure or routine for you. Despite travel, despite weekends, despite, blah, blah, blah. That's part of that baseline that we're talking about. Like, one of my baseline foundations is waking up, having water, taking my supplements, and well, other than going to the bathroom, but like having water and having supplements, and having coffee, but having a good breakfast. And like, you can do that wherever you are. Like, you really truly can, right? And so it's maybe just even something simple like that, but it's creating structure for yourself and prioritizing that, and not giving into the fact that it's the weekend or you're traveling or something gets hard, right? It's creating actually promises to yourself about your structure or your routines or habits. That's part of investing in yourself, is acknowledging that you need to do these things in order to get to where you are or want to be, excuse me. And so you do them despite it being hard or despite it being challenging, you follow through with that. That's part of investing and showing up for yourself.
Yeah, it's like hiring the coach is the first step, but there are so many other of those steps afterwards. And like, it is, the coach can't also do the work for you either, right? And so, yeah, I like kind of how you say, like, it's partially holding yourself accountable too. That is investing in yourself and making those promises to yourself, and even having that baseline and going, hey, maybe my expectations were off with my reality. And I think part of having a coach is having that objective viewpoint of someone who can kind of take that 30,000-foot view of things and go, okay, like, here's kind of the reality of the situation, whatever that might look like. And I find so many times, like, clients can get caught up in just the day-to-day minutia and maybe feel like they're not making that progress. And so, just even being able to have someone bring a different perspective and helping you invest in yourself, and then hopefully kind of bringing along that different perspective to that client as well, letting them be a little bit more objective with themselves, like, that's just, investing in a coach, at least a very good coach, is so much more than just, getting macros and a training program and checking in once a week and that's it. Like, I think it's our job as teachers, and to teach and to empower our clients to not only just change their lives physically, but to change it on a mental side as well. Because I think, so many people have so many struggles, mentally with this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I think it's a big part of coaching, and then, investing in yourself and hiring a coach that, can help you along those lines. I mean, we're not licensed therapists, although sometimes I'm like, I should have done that for this job instead of exercise science. But like,
Right.
I still think having that objective viewpoint with something that can be so emotionally volatile for so many people, really allows maybe to be a bit of an emotional regulator with each individual client. And you're kind of there as that sounding board and as kind of that, whoa, we just, we need to calm down here. I had a client, we've been working for whatever, 8 weeks, he's pound a week, just dropping quite nicely, check in this week. I just feel like I'm not making any progress. My wheels are spinning. I'm just feeling deflated. And so like I pulled up like the last, 8 weeks, showing that, show pictures, I'm like, hey, like look at all the things that you have done, and you are changing your life, and you are being more active, you're holding yourself accountable. He's like, oh, he's like, wow, yeah, like looking at it from that 30,000-foot view is like really helpful. And then going, okay, now as we continue to move forward, let's try and keep that perspective in mind. Like, yes, we want to focus on the short term, but don't let yourself get too caught up in that type of stuff, because I think that is where a lot of people tend to get derailed, is they kind of lose sight of that big picture and just then feel like they're not progressing. They feel like, shit, why am I doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And then they slide back. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of being type A and weird and stuff, right? Is that we usually have a metric fuck ton of data that we can rely on to look at. And so, I mean, that's one of those things that I think is helpful for like myself as a coach, when we have to be those like emotional ShamWows all day long, where we're just soaking up everybody else's stuff and we're like, it's fine, like trying to show them. But I think that one of the things you brought up in there was like with investing in yourself with like the time and realistic expectations. I think sitting down, when you're putting in the effort, figuring out what your baseline is and stuff like that, making a super, super realistic expectations for yourself is like the smartest thing that you can do. Because I could sit here all day and be like, okay, well, yeah, if I really put effort into it, I could work out 7 days a week, and like probably twice every one of those 7 days of the week. I'd be miserable by the time that week was done and be like, I don't ever want to do this shit again. This is way too much. And so I know for myself, 3 days of lifting, I can do that pretty much every single week. No excuses. That can get done. And then, rolling into like running and like things like that. Normally I'm going to do them together at the gym. So I can normally get both things done at least 3 days a week. If I start saying the number 5, I'm overreaching. I know that. Like it might get done one week, but like when I do a consult call with somebody and I'll ask them about lifting, be like, okay, so how many days per week can you commit to every single week? And 90% of the time they come hot out the gate with the number 6, and they're like, it's 6 days a week, I'm in. And I'm like, okay, let's do 4. And
I have like 1 or 2 clients that maybe work out 5 times a week.
Right.
That's
yeah.
it.
I'm the same way.
The rest are less.
Yeah. I aim for 4, or we're breaking it up. If we are like active more days per week, then I might tell them like, I don't want you doing both cardio and strength training on like one of these days or something like that. But having realistic expectations does so much more for you than having crazy expectations for yourself. Because if you set yourself up with this program where it's like a 50-50 shot. You're either going to do it or you're going to fail completely. We don't want to have odds like that, and 6 days per week, probably the first 2 weeks of January is what's going to get people, because it's just like, oh shit, I'm way busier than I thought I was. And it's hard to make that happen. So as soon as you get only 4 days and you've missed 2 now you're beating yourself up. I can't do this. This is crazy. And next thing you know, we're doing 0 days the next week. Whereas if we had set a goal of like 2 or 3, like depending on how new somebody is to stuff, I might go even that low. And that way it's just like, you won. like you beat expectations this week. Congratulations. And then we can raise them and then move like throughout the different spheres of stuff too, to say, where are we going to like twist the dial here? And that's where we have like having that big view where we're looking down on everything helps us kind of tweak, because sometimes it's a little change here, a little change there, and it all adds up to something that works really well. But all of the focus is put on like food groups and cardio. Like that's all anybody wants to talk about when it comes to diet and fitness is don't eat this one food, only eat this superfood, and don't ever do this type of cardio or like something similar, when it's so much more nuanced. And that's where like all of this personalized attention on things comes in to really just be the star of the show, because then we can make it work 100% for who you are as a person, because the things you do to get to where you want to be are the things you're going to have to do for as long as you want to be that person or look like that person. And so it needs to be something that you're comfortable carrying on with.
Yeah. I mean, I am a recovering perfectionist, still a perfectionist. And there's also a thing that is doing too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so like for me personally, it's needing to take a step back and not stress about all of those little details, and needing to work out like 6 days a week and doing all the cardio and being on point with your macros all of the time, because that shit is so tiring after a while. It's so tiring, and it might get you someplace, but also it might end up just having you spinning your wheels because it's so fatiguing. So part of investing in yourself is also taking that time away from the cardio and the training and the macros to just chill, right? That's why we have the foundations. That's why we have that structure set. Hit those things. But then, I don't know, like I had a client check in and was like really upset with herself because she traveled from the States back home, which is like in the UK, and she didn't get all of her cardio in, which honestly is like 3 sessions a week or 20 minutes. Like it's like nothing. And she was like, I really failed on that this week for me, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, one, you checked in, and you were super honest with yourself and me, and you held yourself accountable. But two, I also don't really care that you didn't get your cardio. Like I literally was like, that's okay, because you are extremely jet lagged and you decided to work out anyways, which I wouldn't have, but that's cool. You did. And recovery was fine. And like, I'm not upset about that. And then I took her cardio away. I was like, you don't need that anymore. It's fine. But it's also, it can be very easy to dive into the rabbit hole of being on point and doing all the things. And that's important, right? Like that is important to an extent, but it's also non-adherent if you do more or you go above and beyond, or, like, because like it just gets really tiring, because then you're just going to be doing the cycle of on again, off again. And
it's like a bell curve. And like, which then just becomes this terrible roller coaster you don't want to be on anymore, where you're not doing enough, so you're not seeing results. We find the sweet spot, and then, oh shit, you're doing too much. And like, now we're back down to not finding the results. And so, yeah, that's a roller coaster that I think we've all gotten like stuck on, but nobody wants to be there.
That's where kind of some of that education then though, like comes into play of like, yeah, activity is important, but food control is far more important than to changing your body composition. So like, let's focus on that aspect of things, because you don't necessarily need to be doing 90 minutes of cardio a day and training 5 times a week. Like again, right, you kind of come back to that, having that objective viewpoint. And I think tying it all together is with the training aspect is baseline. Like, let's just do the baseline on a consistent basis, and then if we feel like we have time and energy and emotional capability for more, okay, well then let's have that discussion of like, okay, do we want to add in an extra day? Like one thing I like to do for some people is I'll write 4 days or 3 days and I'll fun day. Go into the gym, train whatever you feel like. If you really do want to get that, there's that option there. Like you can go do that or whatever, go for a run, something like that. But yeah, it really is making sure that you understand your boundaries and not running yourself into the ground. I mean, if you're a parent, you're a full-time working parent, you start to add up all of these things, that's a lot. And I think people just have this idea with diet culture is that you have to do the extreme amount of everything to get to where you want to do, where it is a little bit more nuanced, and I don't think it's not nearly as much as people think it is. And so it's really trying to get them to invest in themselves by having those boundaries and making sure that they are just maybe a little bit more chill with it, and be like in the situation with Jess's client, like that what 20 that 60 minutes of cardio really just not going to make a difference either way,
Like steady
right?
state.
Even if
I was like,
even if you
y'all,
were
it's fine.
like even if you're dieting and you didn't get those 60 minutes of cardio in, you're probably going to be okay that week, right? Like, and so it's very much again kind of coming in as that emotional regulator and be like, that let's tap the brakes here.
I saw something that helped me, I guess, explain it. Like it was like super digestible for me because it's baking and things like that. But it was talking about where people will end up like in an emotional spot with their goals, right? Where now they're feeling like, oh God, it has to happen fast. Like it has to happen now. And using that, like the idea of a cake, where if you had to bake a cake and it said to do it at 350 for an hour, and you're like, but no, I need it done faster. And so instead you like hike the temperature up to 500 and you're like, I'll just bake it for 30 minutes and everything will be fine. It's going to be a fucking disaster. Like that's not going to work out for your cake. And that's like our bodies really respond the same way. You can't just crank the fire all the way up and then try to do it extra fast and then get the same results than if you had done it like the optimal way. Like we've all seen those people where I've been that person. My first prep was just like, okay, this is the date. So we're going to eat next to nothing. And my goal was 2 hours of cardio per day, but you can do extra if you want. And so I did, because I'm that person who's like, oh, if I want, well, do I look like I care more if I do
Really
more?
do the 2 hours of cardio.
Right. Oh my God. I was doing like 3 hours of stairs a day and I looked like Skeletor. Like it was not a good look.
I'm impressed.
I'm going to send you the pictures. Wait until you see this diet.
That's quite a bit. Yeah.
It's next level. I was literally just like,
That's insanity.
bones and teeth. It was insane.
You probably lost a shit ton of muscle.
I shouldn't have even gone in. This is like a whole other story, but I didn't have enough anyways at that point. So yeah, that was like a whole thing. And then I found Paul like 6 months later and here we are. But yeah, I think time can be a big investment that nobody is willing to give up for something like this. And like the thing that I always try to go back with people on when, we have to lay out a plan that's going to take longer than they thought it was going to. It's like, well, we could try it this way and we should be where we're going to be in, 6 months or whatever. Or you can continue to do like the hot and heavy up and down where that you've done before and you're still at the same spot now. And we could just repeat that and be in the same spot in 6 months, or try something different that's going to take 6 months instead of 6 weeks. And then all of the needles will have actually moved at that point. And so I think the time investment is one that really hangs a lot of people up when they find out how long everything's going to take, how much effort they have to put into different things, because that's the other thing that comes back to having a coach or somebody in your corner who's been through a lot of this stuff, is that there's like different phases. I think a lot of people think that you lose the weight and then you live life. And if you want to just keep like where you were, there's a lot of different things that we kind of have to do like in that time frame. And I think that can be one of the most tumultuous if you don't have somebody to hold your hand through a reverse diet, especially if you did just lose, 20, 30 pounds or something. That has the opportunity to get pretty messy. And to, you know, even mess up your relationship with food more, like things like that. And so having somebody there to help talk you through things, because you brought up like the therapist piece, Tyler, like it's not officially part of our jobs, but I mean, I talk to
Unofficially.
clients about everything. Like I know
Yeah.
about like marriages and kids and that like mean lady at work and like all
You
of
know a
that.
lot of intimate details about people's lives. I think I did a post on social media like last week or 2 weeks ago because I was like overwhelmed with the amount of like just amazingness that these people go through or experience, and yet they actually continue to show up for themselves. I was just like overjoyed by a few of my clients, and I was like, yo, I need to make a post because yeah, like it's a lot. What I tell people is like, I'll ask them like if they're really wanting something now. I go, okay, well, is this something that you want, but like for the rest of your life? Like, is that, you know, something that you want for the long term? And they're usually like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, time will pass anyways. So you can continue to do it the way that you think that you should, that has happened prior, which you crash and burn or whatever, or continue to spin your wheels. Or you can commit more time, which is maybe harder, but in the long run, you'll actually make changes and you'll be able to keep those changes around because time's going to pass anyways. So why don't you be productive with that 6 months instead of diet really hard for 6 weeks to find out that you can't adhere, that your hormones are messed up, or like you can't handle it, and then you go back and then you go into like and 6 months from now you're in the same spot or worse, right? That's kind of what I say. Like, well, time's gonna pass, so
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even then talked about the long-term investment that this is on people's overall health and quality of life and well-being and you know, 6 months to a year, people like when you initially tell them like, oh really? I'm like, how fast did this last year go? Like, how
yeah.
fast did that go? Like, that is no time at all when you've
Yeah.
got the next 30 plus years to keep doing this. Like, that is a drop in the bucket. And so, yeah, it's just trying to like change that perception of like, you know, just tracking your macros for 6 to 8 months at maintenance. Like, that'll go by quick. And guess what? You're going to see a lot of changes probably anyways. Like, it doesn't always have to happen right this moment. Like, there is that delayed gratification that comes with it.
That's where I think having something else, I mean, I feel like I always bring this up. It's like having a different piece of the process that you're really focusing on. And that goes back to like the baseline and figuring out like what actually makes you really happy about all of this. You know, like, do you love getting strong? Like, are you tracking that and seeing where those improvements are happening? Or do you just love, you know, the fitness classes? Or like I have a lot of clients that do the burn boot camps. And that becomes not just like where they go to work out, but like where they're having Christmas parties right now. And like these people are immensely important to them. And so I think that's another piece is like not just going and saying like, well, I'm going to go do this workout because that girl on Instagram said this is what she does and I wish I looked like her, and like suffering your way like through, I mean, there's stuff that we all have to do, right? Bulgarian split squats that nobody likes that are good for us, but like you overall what you're doing, like it should be something that brings you joy, like some aspect of it, you know? And so that's something else to really like lean into, and then figure out like how can you make it work for what your overall goals are, or do we maybe need to shift the goals like a tiny bit to make sure that they line up with everything that's making you like that's bringing you joy there, because that's a quick way to give up on it too, is if you just absolutely hate something. And I feel like that's the position a lot of people end up in. And it's always hard when we have a, like if I have a consult and somebody is like, if you tell me I have to track macros, I'm going to punch myself in the face. And I'm like, well, I mean, you don't have to, right? Like hands down, you don't
Yeah,
have
you
to.
don't have to do anything.
But
But do we all coach flexible dieting and macros? Yes. I also think just as a coach, it's an easier way to be as involved in as possible, right, when we're not there with them. And so I think macros are going to be the best bet with trying to help somebody stay on track while also giving parameters of how they should build their day, right? That way we're not ending up in like Christmas cookies and protein shakes, although that's fine around Christmas. We don't want to do that all year round.
Well, my thing is like, you don't have to do anything. Like I've said this before on the podcast, you don't have to do any of that, but you're reaching out to someone, you're talking to someone, probably, I don't know, or you're wanting to change where you're currently at. That's what you're wanting to do. And so essentially you do want to do the things that maybe aren't like exciting to get you to where you want to be to some aspect, right? Okay, so like maybe you don't have to do Bulgarian split squats, but like you probably should do unilateral work because you're going to get old and having balance is good and unilateral work is great. And also, you know what? Bulgarian split squats really grow your glutes really well. So
I like, you know what? I'm going on record. I like Bulgarian
So do
split
I.
squats. They're awesome.
They're
I
the
love 'em.
worst.
I'm just, I tend to be good at them. So I think maybe that's partially
Oh, I'm
why.
not good at them.
But
I'm
like,
gonna
I
add this.
really like them.
I'm going to blow your mind here. Okay. The next time you go to do Bulgarian split squats, actually, I mean, this isn't going to benefit anyone who's only listening. I'll try to explain it. But say you're set up. Okay. So my left leg is doing the work. Take your right shoulder, and as you go down, rotate it just a little bit as you're doing the movement, like for each side. So the weight would be on the working leg side.
Yeah.
It's
But I have to hold 2 dumbbells.
Well, yeah. So then just don't whack your shin with the other one if you're holding 2. It lengthens the glute more. I'm telling you, your ass will hurt so much if you add that in. I started doing it to all of my clients when I'm writing plans. I like add in the rotation and they're like, ugh. Like,
Now rotating is
way to take an exercise I already hate and make it worse.
But if I'm gonna hate doing it anyways, it better light my ass up because then at least I'm like, well, it was a good day.
I agree.
I like getting my ass lit up too.
We all like getting our ass lit up. 'Tis the season. But like if you want to make a change and you have a certain goal that you really want to make happen, then essentially you need and also want to do these things on some level. So you don't have to track macros. Absolutely not. But you need to also then be okay with your progress being slower, harder to manage, harder to measure. Maybe feeling like you're spinning your wheels, like then you have to be okay with that, right? And I'll have these conversations and I'm totally like, hey, that's okay if that's what you want to do. We want to have a free meal. We want to have 3 free meals a week. That's cool. You also need to understand that that's going to have implications in terms of your goals.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know. And so part of investing in yourself is being realistic with that, which we've actually already talked about. So I'm going to shut up, but
yeah, it's like, hey, if you're okay, if you're okay only losing half a pound a week, but you really enjoy the lifestyle that this allows you to do, that's fine too. Like, try and like come from like, I don't really care what you do. These are your goals. I will set the plan and help you kind of navigate this, but like, it's kind of your job to kind of figure out where you want that level of dedication. And there's no wrong answer here.
Right.
Like there just isn't. Like, we can make it work. It really comes down to, what are you willing to invest in yourself? And I think sacrifice could come into play here too.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Nope, you go.
I was going to mention, okay, so we're recording this. It's December 20th. This is probably coming out in the new year. If it is, cool. If it's not, whatever. But like, I think one thing that a lot of people run into is people pleasing, right? Which is probably why people tell us that they want to train 6 days a week. If I'm writing your program, trust me, you don't want to. Right? Like there's a lot of people pleasing that happens. And so you feel like you have to eat out because such and such invited you, or you have to eat grandma's cookies because grandma's there and how's she going to feel? And you have to do these things. But like I just mentioned, you literally don't have to do any of that. And so whether you are new and you are creating new habits and behavioral changes, or you are wanting to level up in what you're doing, that requires change. And people are going to see you doing something different. And they might ask you about that. And you're going to have to talk to them about that, or like answer those questions. And they might pry, or they might say, oh, it's okay. Just blah, blah, blah. Have this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And part of this journey and investment is creating boundaries with those people, also with yourself, right? Of things that aren't going to work well for you, or creating boundaries with people like, hey, this is my plan right now. I want to do this. Thanks very much, but no, thank you. Right. Or creating boundaries with yourself is maybe you over-exercise and you actually have to take a rest day. Take an actual rest day. Don't stress about it. Right. So like, it's part of that investment piece is create boundaries, right? With yourself and with people, and prioritize yourself. That's the only way that you're going to be able to prioritize what you want to do, is create boundaries, routine, structure, blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
100%. I think the boundaries piece is so huge, because you have to do that to be successful with pretty much anything. Like if you want things to go better at work, then you probably need to not have people calling you during your workday so that you can focus and get things done. Or maybe you're like not going to lunch with your work friends because you have to get caught up on something. And like when you're doing it with other stuff, people think it's perfectly normal. Oh, well, I'm not going out to eat because I just really need to save money. I have this, I want to buy a house next year, so we're not going out to eat. And people will be like, oh, that's great. No big deal, right? They totally get it. But if you're like, oh, I don't want to go out because I kind of like already have my day planned, but we could hang out and do something else, or like, and they're like, oh, that's weird. Why can't you go to a restaurant and order a meal or something? And they think it's so weird. And so that's where like the biggest investment out of all of this, from like the beginning of the conversation to now, I feel like has been your baseline, your like what you want, what works for you. And then whether you're currently leveling that up or just chilling in a maintenance mode, that the stronger you can hold on to that and like figure it out, it just serves you so well. Whether it's because you're trying to stay on track, or maybe you have like something's coming up where like you're going to end up off track and you want to know how to come back from it. Like knowing how to come back to that center place is so helpful throughout the year, with making sure that we don't end up in that position where I think like a lot of people around this time of year end up, where they're like, fuck, I don't even know what happened. Like, back in August, I was super on top of it. Everything was very normal. And then all of a sudden I look up and it's December. And like, I'm hearing that from a million people, where like things can just get away from you. And so when you have those things in place, like Jess's water and supplements and like good breakfast, that's not something she has to think about anymore. Like it just gets accomplished. Shit, that's a third of your day, like by the time you've like gotten done with all of that and we've got your lift in, success right there, just by autopiloting something, and you've narrowed down what supplements, what breakfast makes you feel good, things like that. And so that introspection, and then holding yourself to it, because that's the other thing is you get into a coaching relationship, or you're tracking macros, your workouts, whatever, and you start really paying attention to it. You might find some stuff that like you didn't want to like admit to, like, oh, I am the one sabotaging my macros. Like, hey, as I've gotten better at counting my macros lately, where I'm being like very diligent, I'm like, oh, okay. So that box of chocolate in our closet creeps up a little bit more often than I thought so. Or workouts. Like I saw something yesterday. It had, oh my gosh, Jeff Nippard and Dr. Mike from RP.
Natalia.
Did you see that? Like so they were talking about
underrated, the one where they have the signs and they were doing overrated, underrated.
Yes. And one of them was like muscle soreness. And I mean, I made a lot of progression this year, like strength wise, but I feel like I didn't like muscle wise. I mean, I wasn't prioritizing hypertrophy and like things like that, but I was thinking about my workouts and like, I don't really get that sore like anymore. And my workouts, I don't end like soaked in sweat or like anything like that most of the time. But then for the longest time, my workouts have been like 3 sets of 3, but they take me 30 minutes, you know? So I'm like sitting there like a lot of the times in between it. And I was like, okay, I want to switch it. And Dr. Mike had brought something up where he was like, if you're looking to level up intensity or for a change, maybe for a while, seeking out soreness is like what you need to do. And so I like listened to that and took it to heart. I went to the gym this morning. I'm going to be hurting tomorrow.
What'd you do?
I had an upper body day. My shoulders, by the time I left the gym, my chest and my shoulders were literally cramping. And I was like, this is going to go real fucking well when I have to wash my hair tomorrow because I stopped benching. Like I was supposed to go to like 8 reps on one set, but I stopped at like number 5 or something because I was like, you know, when you feel it in your glutes or like your quads, I feel like that's where you feel it more often. You get that like twinge where like, you know, you're doing really good work, but you're going to feel it. That was happening in my chest. And I was like, maybe I should chill.
The soreness is already setting in as you leave the gym. You're like, oh, I'm in one.
Give me a task and I will go do it. Like I said, you're going to be sore tomorrow, and I understood the assignment. So I got extra credit. But yeah, I mean, just paying attention, where can I serve myself better? You know, because I feel like every day there's probably something that we can find it. And then I know if I wake up and first thing in the morning, I haven't been checking those boxes and it like from the week and it's like caught up to me, it'll ruin my day, which in turn means I'm like a shit version of my mom self. I'm a shit version of my spouse self. Whereas like when I have all my ducks in a row and things are working out, like the world's my oyster. Everything's possible. This is great. You know, like it's just so much easier. And I tell my 10-year-old this, like, who was in charge of making that work when it comes to stuff, or like who can make this change? And you know, he has to admit like, me, I can keep myself out of trouble or like whatever. But same thing for us, like anything that I want fixed, it's because I'm not doing it correctly, you know. And I can try and be like, oh well, I'm busy because of this or that happened or like whatever, but really I haven't been putting the effort in. And so that's what like this next year is going to be for me. It's just going to be a big fucking effort is what I'm looking for. And, you know, just trying to like reset that dial. So do you guys have anything in mind for you with what, like any investment changes for 2024?
Well, I mean, I was gonna bring up just that. I was actually gonna bring that up just as you started talking about it, of like, I think we can get so caught up in like feeling like we can't invest in ourselves because there's, oh, I got to invest in this person. There's so much else going on, where it's like, no, if you can invest in yourself, especially within this fitness realm, you're going to be able to bring a much better version to whatever relationship, whatever that you have going on. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel better. Going to look like it's going to be better when you do take that time to actually invest in yourself. So yeah, I just really wanted to reiterate that because I think people really have a tough time just putting themselves first, right? Like what we feel is all these obligations, but like by doing that, you're just going to be able to bring that best version of yourself. Maybe not every time, it doesn't quite work out, you know, that black and white, but you're really going to help set yourself up for that success.
And people respect you a lot when you do that. Like they truly, truly do. I think we feel like we want to do a lot of things for other people. But at the end of the day, if you set yourself up and maybe even communicate that with other people, like work lunches and bringing your own lunch. For example, I know Evan's talked about this when he worked in like corporate Evan world. He would bring his own food to corporate lunches, and those people would respect him even more because they were like, oh, this guy's got a goal and like he means some like shit. Okay, cool, right? Like your kids see mom, dad putting yourself first and looking after yourself, looking after your body, looking after your physical health. They're going to be like, wow, I want to be like mom and dad and like look after myself, right? Like people will respect you more. And if they don't, you do not need them in your life.
Yeah.
Amen.
Word. I think on that mic drop, we should end it because that's perfect. I love it. So, it was a title and now it is a command. Go invest in yourself. So,
Go forth.
go forth with investments. I love it. So, if you're watching this one on YouTube, why don't you tell us how you're going to invest in yourself in 2024 or what you're thinking about working on with that. You know where to find all of us. Our first names at prophysique.com. I don't have anything else to add. Do you guys have anything? Word.
No, our Command the Stage events in February.
It's coming so soon. The 20th? Did I make that up?
22nd
Yes.
to the 25th. 22nd, we're just doing dinner. And then the 25th is the travel day. It's the Sunday. The big days are Friday and Saturday, but yeah.
Yes. And so much fun. Lots of great speakers. It's fantastic if you're a competitor, if you want to be a competitor and you're looking to invest in yourself with some knowledge and some time for you, and you get to go away and like hang out in Florida with a bunch of people who love the same weird stuff you do, and everyone will have Tupperware and everybody will be wearing athleisure all day long. It'll be super.
Lots of people are going to be in prep. Like I've made sure to like prep macro friendly meals. So that's there as well. But yeah, I mean, I think people have the idea that it's not open to you if you haven't competed before.
Right.
It's open to everyone if you have never competed before and you want to know more, to pros. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the best part about it is you get to hear from like everybody. So whether it's something that you're already diving into, or you're like, I don't know, maybe someday, it would be a great opportunity to go and learn a lot of the ins and outs of the process and everything, and just get to hang out with cool people. So if you guys have any questions about that, Jess is your girl. And so reach out to her and she can fill you in on stuff. And we'll talk soon. Happy New Year.
bye.
Guys, I lost it again.
We're still going.